Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a timely announcement.
Hi, I'm Sergey Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we're researchers, writers and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what will happen to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
This is Ed Cohen, your broadcast host on Global TV Talk Show, a unit of globalbusinessnews.net. Since Global TV Talk Show began, because of the COVID pandemic crashing our live meeting business, about April 2020, we began Global TV Talk Show, bringing together people from across borders, from across cultures, from across time, to meet here in this, what we call global meeting room. Zoom, terrific invention, making it easy and inexpensive to bring people together from across the world to exchange ideas. Our special guest today is Dr. David Weiss from Toronto. Dr. Weiss is extremely well known. He's published 7 books, has been on bestseller lists, and he has multiple master's degrees, and he is a renowned person of knowledge, recognized that way by corporations and organizations and governments in the field of innovation, in the field of leadership training, in the field of making yourself adapt better to changing times. And boy, are we in that now, aren't we? So he looks at the business world saying VUCA. Of course, we've heard of that already. Volatile, uncertainty, craziness, anxiety. But he's innovated on that VUCA. So his VUCA is V for vision, which means top leadership in business have to have a vision of where they're going. How are they going to open up their companies? Are they going to require everyone to be vaccinated? Are they going to require 6 feet apart? How are they going to do this? Are people going to remain afraid of coming in contact with strangers? They weren't at one time, but now they're strangers. Have they been vaccinated? Are they going to lie about it? Am I in danger? Do I want to be around all of that? So a leader must get into it, he says, and show the understanding. So V, the vision, U, show the understanding. First, get it, and then display it. Walking around, not being a dictator, listening to people, finding out how they're doing, how their families are doing. Do they understand the work that needs to be done? What are their challenges with their customers? Because COVID has impacted everyone and everything. Everybody has been impacted. Find out. C, VUCA, VU, now C, he says it's curiosity. Now, he says that you need, as a leader, you need to ask your customers what's important to them now in the post-COVID era. Not only the customers, but ask employees about what's important to them now. And not only that, ask suppliers what's important to them now. Dr. Weiss is going to talk to us about this. At the end, there's going to be a display of this specific information. You'll want to take notes. And A, not anxiety, but agility. In other words, he calls it innovation. And he says innovation cannot be the job of the CEO. The CEO's job is to make sure innovation happens from employees, from customers, from suppliers, to be a leader, to enable innovation to happen. There are no wrong answers. If something is broken, try to fix it. If it doesn't work, make adjustments, try it again. Oh, doesn't work so good, try it again. Keep going, push it on. Anyway, I've done enough talking. Let's welcome Dr. David Weiss.
What we're finding is that in the old world, for a long time, we would survive with leaders who were based upon good experience and good knowledge. And if they had that, and that's what the resume is, and people would ride on that. But what we're now dealing with in this new reality, in these VUCA times, is the emergence of two other capabilities. One of them that's been talked about a lot is emotional intelligence. And when we think about emotional intelligence, we're talking about people who have self-awareness of how they feel emotionally. They are perceptive of the emotional responses people have, and then they're able to engage in dialogue in a way that makes it work. And men and women who've got good emotional intelligence are now being appreciated more and given leadership responsibilities. The research is really strong that people, regardless of whether you're outgoing or whether you're more quiet, whatever gender you are, those who have emotional intelligence tend to be the best leaders. So
Let's talk.
so that
you.
becomes a really important point.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, excuse me for interrupting here.
No, it's not a problem.
There's been a lot of death and sickness because of COVID and related things. And a lot of people are dealing with this quietly. They're not everybody can talk about this kind of thing. But the people in the workforce, whether they're working from home or in the office, everybody's been touched by someone they know or know of.
Mm-hmm.
How can a leader address this situation?
Mhm. Well, we're actually evolving significantly in the workplace, where leaders now are expected, maybe when you hire, you shouldn't be asking personal questions, because we don't want to have that bias making the right choice for the job. But once the person is working for you, we're really evolving, especially because of Zoom and all these things, where we've now entered into people's homes and we're getting on a much more personal level, knowing people's context and their situations. So, for example, the diversity and inclusion world, which is a very, very important positive development, where people of any background should be able to have the opportunity to contribute as meaningfully as possible. And so diversity means, are they represented in our workplace? Inclusion is, once they're there, are they included? Or are they still segmented in
Right.
some
Do they
way?
belong? Do they actually feel belong?
Well, that's exactly the third word. So it goes to diversity, to inclusion, to belonging. And belonging comes about because the separation of life, of your home and your work, is now getting all muddled in this VUCA world. And you as a leader need to be able to be sensitive to the real realities of the person, the situation they have at home, the situation that they have if in fact they've been touched by COVID and someone died and they still are emotionally feeling that. If they're scared about coming back to work. We found a really very unusual thing. 25% of the people are afraid when they come back to work to take elevators.
Oh.
All right. In other words, you got to go up 4 stores. Even if they say 1 person per elevator, they won't take an elevator. Right? Not interesting. 7% of the people are afraid to use the stairwells. So in other words, of the 20,
touching something, right?
Yeah, that's right. These are real issues, because they're touching, because they're in the environment. I don't know what happened to your spray. Who knows what's going on and who was there last. Now, the smart person is saying that means I'm going to have traffic on my stairwells now. 18% of my population is going to take the stairwells when before they weren't taking it. Isn't this the time to paint the stairwell? To put up a couple of prints and at least make it a desirable place for people to walk around. I mean,
right,
we need to be
right.
sensitive to the human
put
nature
in
of people.
Blower, some kind of
and
a fan
maybe
system.
Put in some air flow, yeah. Absolutely, and it's good for their athletic capability. We need to be addressing the belonging and not only the diversity and inclusion. It's like a deeper level of relationships.
Wow, thank you very much. So our audience needs to know the show is not rehearsed, although we do have guidelines, content guidelines. Producer Paul, is it possible to show the book covers?
So the Leadership Gap, this book was a really important book that ultimately sent a strong message that what we need leaders who are holistic leaders. What a holistic leader means is not someone who is, I'm just strategic or I'm just a people leader, but I need everybody to be thinking from the customer first, also understanding the strategy as a guideline, living the culture and values, and then ultimately at the same time, being able to work cross-functionally, manage a team, and be a really good personal leader. So the Leadership Gap was arguing that we have a gap. There are more positions available that are unfilled. And the reason why is there aren't the people who are dealing in this VUCA world from a broad perspective and really bringing everything in at the same time. So the Leadership Gap really drove that message. It actually did wonderfully, and it's translated into Korean. And I'm very proud of that book. It's a lovely piece of work. Yeah.
So did you have something to do with the design of the cover?
Actually, the design of the cover was initially all blue, and my son at that time was in design school, and I said, can you do something with this? So he put that kind of like light shining into the future, and I liked it. And John Wiley and Sons, the publisher, went with it. So he has it on his portfolio. His name's Joseph Weissgold, and he's quite proud of it.
So I like the gap between
right.
gap and leadership, and
right.
I don't see a shiny light. And this is like feeling the elephant, and what do you feel? But it's like a highway.
You like that slice of whatever you see there.
Right, a pathway.
A pathway. Good. I'll go with your answer.
Yeah. Okay. Is there another book we could look at? Nope. Some technical.
There you go,
Oh,
leadership
here
driven
we go.
HR.
Great.
So this actually is an evolution of a work I wrote, which was very, very popular, called High Impact HR, which came out in the late 1990s. And my publisher came back and said, David, there's still really a lot of interest. Can you just write another version of it? So I wrote Leadership Driven HR. And the message here is that HR really has to deal with leadership as a key access route to, number one, bring out that holistic capability and deal with that complexity. So what it drives is the message of HR as a function. So this is about the function itself. How does HR as a function become a strategic asset to the business and become a leader within the organization? And also it gets to this very unusual part that people really love, and that's what I call the 4Ds. It's basically, how do you actually stop doing certain things that are not really adding value from the HR function's perspective? They get overloaded and inadvertently do things that can get in the way of innovation, get in the way of how we build leaders. So the 4Ds are, basically delete it, stop doing it, delay it, which means maybe don't do it now, distribute it, get someone else to do it, or diminish it, make it smaller. But we need to ultimately find a way to free up parts of HR to allocate it to what it needs to do for the business. And that book actually is a very, very important book for the HR function specifically. So it's written to the human resources vice president and directors and leadership development capability and HR business partners. I do a lot of teaching of HR business partners how to actually live that kind of concept in their work environment.
So the role of the HR business partner, particularly in the world of employee mobility management, has become a bridge between the service provider and the manager of the corporate mobility function and watching the budget, and the line manager who doesn't have time to do anything. So the person in between is that HR business partner.
Absolutely, and they work very effectively. And I know you have a lot of experience in this yourself, but they work very, very effectively when they actually are helping with that mobility. Mobility meaning actually helping people to work in different countries, work in different places. The secret for HR that a number of them learned is they've got to give equal attention to the reabsorption. When they don't often help the person get to that other place, they don't always spend the same amount of time to bring them back effectively, which doesn't happen at the moment you bring them back. You've got to create the scenario to bring them back so that people know what they can contribute. It might have been a long time since they were there. So they have a very significant role in that space as well, absolutely.
And increasingly, I'm guessing, and I'm sort of posing this question back to you to toss it, get me out of this, I'm going to give it to you, is what about the role of virtual? So I'm here in San Diego and I'm actually working in Toronto today with you, and I will be in Sri Lanka in a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to be in Germany next week. So I'm working virtually. And how do you capture all that knowledge and transfer it so that the boss knows the value of my job?
Absolutely. It's part of the Vuca world. It's part of this complexity that we're dealing with, this ambiguity, and how do you do that? These are questions that will evolve over time. There's no cookie cutter answer where we know the answer. But I'm also working constantly. I'm speaking at a conference in Berlin shortly, and then I have to speaking with you in San Diego. These kinds of time horizons and space joining is one of the radical gifts that we have with this new technologies that are emerging. It's almost like there is no concept of distance anymore. Distance shrinks to nothing because we're talking spontaneously with each other, and time shrinks to nothing, where immediacy becomes the new request. So some organizations are saying, how do we protect space and how do we protect time to allow you to think because things are happening so immediately and we need to give people time to think. One organization just said, from now on, we don't allow people to have, Zoom meetings on Thursday afternoons because we got to give you time to think and find another way to communicate. So you're able to work and do other stuff other than having meetings and meetings and meetings. So there's an upside to it, which is wonderful. And then there's new challenges that emerge that we need to be thinking about all the time.
Thank you. Paul, is there another book or two we could look at?
The Innovative Intelligence is the other book that I thought we might look at.
Oh, there's somebody climbing a wall there. Wow.
There it is. Innovative Intelligence. This book is actually, of all that I'm really most proud of. It's translated into Chinese. I've been teaching in Shanghai, not virtually. This is pre-COVID at the Zhongdao University, and it's because it's in Chinese. They can work there. It's a very interesting experience working with sequential translation to be able to do that effectively. Really, the message in Innovative Intelligence, the secret of Innovative Intelligence, is we need to move away from the idea of what we need to build is the innovative skills and knowledge of a leader. You're not going to be able to do that. Someone's 30, 40, 50 years old, they spent their life developing their cognitive development. They're not going to easily be able to be rewired in a week-long program and now think more innovatively. But what you can become is a leader of innovation. How do you become the leader that can work with diverse teams and draw out those innovative capacities of your employees, of your teams? So you don't have to be the most innovative. It calms people down tremendously. But you have to be the person who can work with others and draw out everyone's level of innovation, combine all those ideas, and then ultimately see a good idea emerge and start building it up together from that perspective. So you have to be open to seeing an innovative idea when you see it, when you experience it, but you don't have to generate it. And that's a radical shift from the way many innovation writers have been talking about innovation, where you've got to be the one as the leader who's the most innovative. And that's just an unfair expectation. I didn't sign up for that, and it's not my capability, but I can be a leader of innovation.
This is brilliant. And so I've been taking notes the old-fashioned way here of what you've been saying, because the wheels are turning already.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic, because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them, because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
So how would you, okay, you're going to give a lecture on this. How can I, as somebody who knows nothing about that innovation, be trained to develop a mindset to look for ways of integrating all this stuff?
Well, obviously your commitment to wanting to learn is going to help a lot. So if we just send people into a room and say, okay, you must learn something. So you have to experience some level of it's important to you. But I think one of the most compelling parts about becoming a leader of innovation is that leadership in Vuca times, what we wrote in Innovative Intelligence, basically was saying that if you really want to be relevant as a leader, you're going to have to become a leader of innovation. You're going to have to become someone who is able to work with diverse teams. Do you know how many teams in organizations I go in and I say, do you have silos? And the answer is, sure, we have silos. And I say, well, by definition, you're going to have a challenge being innovative in that organization. Because how do you get diverse teams within your organization talking to each other? So we need to build the bridges between the different parts of the organization so that we're able to have a different kind of conversation. And you as a leader have to be comfortable working with diverse teams. You're a director of sales. You have to be comfortable having someone from operations and marketing and purchasing all in the same room and thinking about what can we do ultimately capture the interest of a certain customer base, and not just rely on the salespeople as the way to do it. And we teach them how to do that with specific kinds of techniques of starting with the customer. Don't think inside out. The difference between innovation and continuous improvement is innovation is outside in. It starts with the customer, what's their needs, what's their pain points, and how does that then affect you, and therefore how do you have to change? Continuous improvement is inside out. We got a machine, how do we improve it? We have a process. We start with the process and we say, can we make it better? Can we do DMAIC on it, which is like lean and all these various analysis processes to remove waste and make it more effective. Both are good. This is not a one versus the other. It's not either or. This is all about and also. Everything has goodness, but think outside in, and just starting from that point starts changing the perspective of individuals.
So to what extent, over the past couple of years, pre-COVID, the rage has been scrums, I'm not sure I'm saying that right, and sprint, and, sprint towards an end goal, and agility, how do you be agile? And this is exactly what you're talking about without using all those words. And how would you do that in this new work environment?
So that is very much aligned with what I'm saying. It's another kind of approach, but they're all kind of doing similar things. It was around the year 2003 when there was a collection of about 17 very, very bright people who were trying to change things that came up with some principles of agile. So agile is kind of an umbrella of principles. And then from that, a number of streams emerged. One of them is what you're calling Scrum. And these kinds of sprints where, get it focused, get it where you have a timeline, where you have undivided attention with the people in the room who can make a decision, working on it in a kind of a methodology that will surface what the customer needs and find out how you can generate innovative answers and ideate around it, and then ultimately to iterate. But all that within a time-based kind of thing to deliver a meaningful outcome. That's actually the way a number of organizations are working. It's definitely the way high tech is working. And they have made some wonderful progress using that kind of approach.
I really enjoy this interface with you. So let's just review a couple of things to get takeaways clear for the audience. You mentioned the words ideate and iterate. So the first one, ideate, can't even say it right.
Ideate.
But that's ideate. This is the idea of ideas, sharing ideas, and with no fault, no stigma. There's no wrong answer. And then the other one, iterate, means what? The application?
No, the ideate, you're right on. That's exactly what it is. It's kind of like brainstorming, but more dramatic. It's really using lots of inventiveness to generate a lot of ideas, and then ultimately to think about what you could do. What iterate, if you think about the real innovation of Scrum and those, there are two major innovations. One is it's totally customer centric. Where is the customer, the student, the patient, the citizen, what are their pain points? And then the iteration on the other end, because we've been brainstorming for a number of years, but and we can improve it. But the iteration is really going after the principle of, we have to get it right, perfect the first time whenever we come up with an idea. But if we're in a VUCA world where nothing is really clear anymore, how in the world are we going to get it right the first time? So what we need to do is we need to come up with what we call a minimal viable product, or something that we can bring back to that customer and say, is this what you want? And then they look at it and they say, you know what, it looks like this, but you know what, it doesn't look exactly like that. That's not, if it's a product or if it's a process or it's a service, whatever it is, they give you feedback. And then I go back and I say, okay, I fixed it a bit. Is that better? And is that better? Is that better? So it's experimentation. And in fact, the literature, and there's a lot of, I think it's a mistake, has been talking about this is failure. We need to fail often. Now, that's just a provocative way of saying we need to iterate. And people respond to, we need to fail often. I don't need to fail often. I don't want to fail. I don't like failing. And the answer is, we don't want you to fail. We want you to experiment. And we want you to iterate. And through that experimentation, going back and forth and going back and forth and back and forth, you successively improve it and improve it and improve it. And by virtue of that, you come up with a more rapid way of getting a good answer to what you're really looking for. So iteration is really crucial. And it's very different than what people have been trained to do when they were told to get it right the first time, because you can't, because we don't even know what we're doing. Remember, it's VUCA.
We're talking with Dr. David Weiss. You can see his name on the screen. He's on LinkedIn. Go check it out, and you'll learn a lot. And is there another way people can reach you?
Yeah, so my firm's website is weissinternational.ca, W-E-I-S-S international.ca. And on it, the fifth tab has a tab called Free Articles. So I learned a while ago that any article I write that's more than a year old has no market value unless I give it away for free. So there's about 45 articles there, 5 are in French and about 40 are in English, and you can download them all. You got a chapter of each of my 7 books that are there as well, and you can have a copy of those chapters for free. Just go on it, click, 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 and send it. I won't hound you, but if you do want to chat, send me a note, and I'll be glad to chat with you.
So we've been talking with Dr. David Weiss about striving to do more, but use a new approach and a human approach, especially as we move away from COVID restrictions and opening things up and catering to wellness in the workforce, right? And I really appreciate you being on the show. Here's the details. Thank you, producer Paul. Oh, we just lost it. Perhaps you could put that back up, and let's zoom in on it if we can. And if not, we'll add it in post-production. So here we are. Okay. And that's a nice young picture.
It one of the characteristics of COVID is it helps the whitening of hair.
I know. Look at my beard.
And it's just real beautiful. That's the VUCA concept that we were talking about volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. It's a kind of a cool thing, and it's a real pleasure to be on the show, Ed. You're a terrific host, and it's an honor to be here.
So, Paul, if we could go back to that VUCA thing for a second. Once again, give us your innovation, your ideation or iteration of the new VUCA.
Well, so you see the 4 letters on the VUCA. It's really an acronym for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, which is kind of a chaotic world. And so what I did was I flipped it to V for vision. not as end state, but as purpose. So really get your organization and you as a leader know your purpose. The U stands for understanding, and that's where everybody needs to understand the compelling reasons why you're going in a direction, what you're going to do. Everyone needs to be involved. Communicate, communicate, communicate. The C stands for curiosity. We need everyone's ideas, and you need to have a forum for drawing it out and going even beyond your employees. Get your suppliers' ideas to feed into it. Get your customers' ideas to feed into it. We need the curiosity of everybody to come up with solutions that are most effective in this VUCA world. And the A stands for agility, which means we need to recognize that whatever we're coming up with is going to iterate. It's going to keep on evolving and changing because things are changing so rapidly, and we ultimately have to be able to function well within this new VUCA world as leaders. So that's why we called it leadership in VUCA times.
And 3 cheers to producer Paul for being agile and putting all this together at the last second. All right. Thank you, Dr. Weiss. Please come back.
A pleasure. Thank you so much. All the best, Dan. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. All right. This is Ed signing off in San Diego. That's Dr. Weiss in Toronto, Canada. Can't wait to go back there. I love that city.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.